Sometimes, saving a species doesn't start in the forest, but with one bird, its connection to people, and the story it shares. I think it's safe to say we can all empathize with an animal in pain. Even though they may not be like us, human that is, it pains us to see another living creature in peril. Similar to how we have veterinarians to help treat our injured pets, wildlife rehabilitation centers exist to care for those sick, injured, or orphaned wild animals. Operated by trained professionals and often a lot of volunteer assistance, the goal of these centers is simple: help animals in need and give them a second chance at survival. The goal is always to nurse an animal back to health so that it can be released into its natural habitat, but sometimes that's easier said than done. Sometimes the condition of an animal leaves it in a state where it would no longer be able to fend for itself in the wild. Rather than selling them out into the world and hoping for the best, these individuals remain at a center and live out the remainder of their lives as an ambassador animal. Like any ambassador, these animals function as a representative, and in this case, they represent their species as a whole. Their purpose is to educate, provide people with an up-close experience with a member of their species. Sometimes this is used to help reduce fear, squash misconceptions, or promote coexistence. And sometimes, it just highlights how badass that animal might be. Today's story comes from Korinne Bengert and a great horned owl she met in rehabilitation. Without any more delay, let's get right into her story. My name is Michael Bryden, and you're listening to Wilder Insights. Korinne Bengert is a natural-born naturalist living in Regina, Saskatchewan. Her passion for wildlife and desire to learn led her to begin volunteering with Rehabilitation and Education Centre close to home. Although she didn't know it then, but her time at the center would introduce her to a great horned owl that would strengthen her love for wildlife more than she could ever imagine. But this owl's story begins before he met Korinne. Like all owls, his story begins in a nest. Great horned owls' nests are commonly found in trees such as cottonwood, juniper, beech, or pine. They often adopt an already constructed nest built by another species, but it won't hesitate to use cavities in dead snags, live trees, or abandoned buildings. Materials used in the nest can vary greatly in size, depending on the species that made it originally. So if you're a hawk, crow, raven, heron, or even a squirrel, lock your doors, beware of squatters. When great horned owl chicks are born, their eyes are closed, and clutch sizes can vary from 1 to 4 chicks. After a week or two, their eyes open, and after 2 or 3 weeks, their fluffy down feathers begin to come in. If you've never seen a photo of an owl chick, I highly encourage you to go look it up. You won't be disappointed. Unfortunately, our owl's story takes a turn for the worse. When a storm rolls in and blows its nest out of its tree. He was found on the ground, the only survivor out of him and his siblings. He was quickly brought into care, and shortly after arrival, the rehabilitation process began, and it was discovered that he sustained a head injury. After some time under care, the owl had grown, and he was set to be released. But when that day came, he stretched his wings and took to the sky. But like a boomerang, he completed a circle in the air and came crashing down at the feet of his releasers. Due to his inability to control his flight, he was deemed non-releasable and was provided a permanent home at the rehab center. From there, he became an ambassador animal for his species and was given the name Boomer. Korinne first met Boomer in 2019 when she started volunteering at the rehab center. She started glove training and soon after became Boomer's caregiver. The two of them spent countless hours together, and after some time, Korinne began to really get to know Boomer's personality, what made him tick, and what made him so special. He stole her heart, and the two created a unique bond. At the same time, the Ministry of Environment was in process of updating their captive management regulations, and in 2021, they were given the news that certain species could not be held in captivity in Saskatchewan without licensing. Great horned owls were one of these species, and the rehab center would not be permitted a license. After just a few short years together, Korinne had to say goodbye to Boomer. This news was devastating, but regardless of how painful it would be to let him go, Boomer deserved a good home. She began reaching out to rehabilitation centers across the country, and finally, after months of searching, she was overcome with joy when she contacted the Prince Rupert Wildlife Rehab Centre. The Prince Rupert Wildlife Rehabilitation Centre is a volunteer service created by Nancy Galinia and her late husband Gunther. Together, they created a center where all animals, from wildlife to domestic pets, could be brought in for rehabilitation. The facility has been in operation for over 20 years, and over this time, they've rescued, rehabilitated, and released thousands of animals. When Korinne got in contact with Nancy, she agreed to take Boomer in immediately. Together, Korinne and Boomer safely traveled on a WestJet plane from Regina, Saskatchewan to Prince Rupert, on the coast of British Columbia in November 2021. To this day, Boomer can be found living a wonderful life with Nancy, alongside the many other animals that have come across her center. Korinne travels to Prince Rupert each year to pay Boomer a visit, where it's clear to see that their friendship is stronger than ever. At the sound of her voice, his inner child comes out as he greets her with hoots and baby chatter. With each visit, Korinne is reminded and proud to see how far he's come since his accident as a baby.
There's the chatter that I know with booms.
I met Boomer back in 2024 while visiting Prince Rupert. He's a beautiful bird, so I snapped a few photos of him that I think turned out pretty nice. It's clear to see how hard Nancy worked, and how much compassion she showed for the animals at her center. I figured the least I could do to help was to share some of the photos I took while visiting the Prince Rupert Wildlife Rehab Centre. I left a review on Google highlighting my experience and praising the work Nancy's done. Included in my review was a photo of Boomer. I don't know how this came about, but maybe it just goes to show how strong their connection is. But me meeting Boomer led to me meeting Korinne. She reached out to me to ask about the photos of Boomer, and in turn, I asked her about her story. If you want to see these photos of Boomer, check out the show's Instagram page. Or better yet, you can pay Boomer a visit at the Prince Rupert Wildlife Rehabilitation Centre if you ever get the chance. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I know it's a little different than usual, but we'll be returning to our normal interview-styled podcast next time. I highly encourage you to visit your local wildlife rehab center and learn about the great work they do. Many of them operate almost entirely through donations and volunteer work, so if you're able to, I encourage you to volunteer or donate to these facilities. I want to say thank you to the Seaford radio station, located in Prince George, BC, for providing me with the facilities needed to record this podcast. And an additional thank you to the band Funeral Culture for providing me with the song you're listening to right now. If you're interested in becoming a guest on the show, know somebody you think should be a guest, or, like Korinne, want to share a conservation story of your own, email wilderinsightspodcast@gmail.com or DM me at wilderinsightspod on Instagram. And if you want to help out the show, leave a rating. I'm told that helps. And share this episode with your friends. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time.